Good evening, everyone, and welcome to BT's Fly Tying Friday. Tonight, the 23rd of May, we're going to take a look at what I think, personally, is the absolute best dry fly ever developed. Developed by our friend Frank Johnson. It's called the Water Walker. The weekly tip? Well, it's going to be several weekly tips, but the last one and the main one will be about fishing vests. But we're going to present a little different tonight. We're going to start out with a couple of tips. Go to the fly, which as I say, I think it's the best fly ever developed, and then we'll come back for the last tip. And we're going to start tonight with a thank you and a request, but we write books. If you're in need of books and you think the type of instruction we provide is of value, you can see our website is up there under the red Beatty's books on the left-hand side. My email address is on the other. We appreciate you considering us when you look for your training materials. And with that, let's take a moment and talk about fly rods. And the tip tonight, the one tip is coming from me. If I learned it from anybody, it was by accident. So but if you think you developed anything in fly fishing or fly tying, you probably need to go talk to your grandfather or your great grandfather if they fly fish. But anyway, let me grab a fly rod here. Now, this is going to be funny because the shortest fly rod I have is 9.5 feet. Okay, that's this one right here. This room is 10 this way and 12 this way, and I am going to try not to have a problem with this as I put this all together. But I already got it all hung up here. But I'll get it together. And Carly, I'll try not to catch the dog in the fly that's dangling down from the tip. And I'll get out here and get that fly. Carly, you're working so well to help me out there. Thank you, Carly. By the way, Carly is the dog in case you didn't know. And I'll just get this all pulled out. Okay. Now, I often see fly tires or excuse me, fly fishers do this. Every fly rod comes with a place to hook your fly right up here at the very top of the handle. We had a doctor friend in Bozeman. He was my doctor, but we often fish with him. And in fact, I had a going deal with him. His day off was Wednesday and Sunday. And if any Wednesdays that I had a single client, I'd put him in the back of the boat and he'd just go along for the ride and we'd have a good old time. And anyway, Dr. John, anyhow, he told us that this was put on the fly rod in this location for doctors in emergency rooms so that they could remove hooks from people's hand. Because how often have you had your fly hook there and you get a little too far up on the handle and you stick yourself? Okay, there's a way around it, and it comes to Lefty Cray. And I have to talk to you about the first conclave that I went to. The Triple F conclave was in Spokane, Washington. If I remember right, it was 1980. If I'm misremembering by a year or so, so be it. Let's just say it was 1980. It was a long time ago. At that show was probably the most enlightening adventure of my life. In that I learned from Lefty. I learned one of the problems I was having with casting and got it corrected from Al Krieger. I ran into Wayne Llewellyn for the first time, and I thought I was a pretty good fly tyer. I'd been a commercial tyer for getting on 25 years at this point in time. And I learned so doggone much from Wayne, I just walked away with my head splitting down the sides. It was just a phenomenal uh, 2 days at that show in Spokane. Well, here's what I picked up from Lefty, and it was from a presentation that he made about on the stream etiquette and all that kind of stuff. And then he had this one last tip at the end, and let me pull my fly line out here. And I cannot tell you how often I've used this and how often it can save someone's hand. Now, I want you to notice what I'm doing here. Fly in my hand. I'm not going to hook it here to stick myself. Instead, I am going to reach up here and hook it. Two guides up. And then I'll just pull this out enough so that I can go around the reel, and it's under tension, ready to go fishing. And when I want to go fishing, all I have to do is this, reach up, go fishing. No trying to strip it out through the guides and all this kind of stuff. It's now the other thing is once you're all set up and you're ready to go to the water, whether that be a river or a lake or wherever, I see more fly rods broken in three ways, and I've been on the water and seen a ton of them broken. Uh, I'd usually go through about six fly rods a year when I was guiding clients. It just stuff happens. They're caught in a car door, tailgate of a pickup, or the hatchback of a car. Walking the way I'm going to show you here. And you know what one of the biggest offenders were? It started showing up when the beadhead craze hit the US in 92. Because if you cast a lousy tailing loop with a standard fly, oh, it might wrap around the fly rod, but most of the time it's going to be okay. But I'll guarantee you at least two or three times out of 10, if you hit it with a bead on a bead head, in about 10 casts, the tip's going to fall off your rod because you cracked it. It's one of the weirdest things. Like I said, the three worst things on fly rods is car doors, walking the way I'm going to show you, and then I'm going to have a fix. And then the last one is the bead heads. But anyway, many people get their waders on and their fly rod in hand, and they get ready to go down the trail, and they're doing this routine, and their fly rod's out in front of them. Cannot tell you how many rods get broken because as you walk, this thing is doing this routine all over the place. There's things called sagebrush, and in the east, there's every kind of plant along the river, bushes, and all that type of stuff. But a lot of sagebrush in this part of the country, and it has a way of reaching out and grabbing that rod tip and breaking it. Now, here's how you want to really suggest you walk to the river, and I'm going to try to do this in the limited space that I have. But I suggest that you grab your rod like this, bring it straight up behind you, and as you walk along, it's happening behind you, not in front of you. And yeah, I'll snag a tree once in a while or a bush, but what usually happens is I pull that loop of line that I have here, and it'll slip out, and I don't break the rod. Where going this way, you're shoving it into whatever the obstacle is. This way, it's usually just snagging the line. So carry your rod like this, and I usually have it clear up along my back. Is the way I've got it. I can't do it in here because of the limitations of this room, but I'll show you how that is right now. Because for the last thing, I'm going to show you with the rod fixed up. Okay, there we go. Let me just pull that down. All right. Now, the way you carry it, of course, the tip is out, not like I'm carrying it here, but it's just like this. And I've never broken a rod tip this way, but as I say, I used to, as a working guide, go through about six rods a year in one way or another. Clients break them, not watching when you close the car door, all the wonderful things that can happen. Now, we're going to leave this like this because we're going to talk about it again here in a few minutes. But for now, if there are no questions or comments, your chance.
Hey, Al,
Yes.
another good reason for hooking your fly on a guide instead of on that hook keeper. A 9-foot rod and a 9-foot tip, a leader. If you hook it on the hook keeper, when you let go of it, there's more line closer to the reel, and it's going to pull that leader all the way back through the rod, and you're going to have to restring it. But if you look it up through the guide, you got more line out, and it won't come back through.
Yeah.
Very true. Go ahead.
Yeah. Another thing, when you bring that line down around that reel, you've got two parts of that reel. One is the spool part, and the other one is solid. you want to make sure that you wrap that line around solid part, because I've caught my leader down into that where it moves, on the spool, and you
Sure makes a mess, don't it? I have too. Thank you
yeah.
for bringing that up because I forgot to do that, and that's an important feature. Unless you're in the business of selling leaders, So anyhow, if there's no other suggestions, questions, comments, we'll get on into tying the fly. And this is the roadmap fly. This is a water walker, Frank Johnson style. It's a hair wing parachute with a parachute on each individual wing rather than around a wing post. It's two of them. And guarantee you, it is an absolute pain to tie. And to do that tonight, here's it from the other direction. Isn't it? Now, what I wanted you to see there, you can really see what makes this such a good fly is its positioning on the water. But you see the kind of halo effect that it puts around the fly? Your other fly configurations don't do it the same way. And this just kind of adds more of an illusion of life, I believe, than some of the other applications. But we'll decide whether that's the good one or not. Tonight, though, we're going to be using these materials, and I want you to notice that I'm going to be tying with brown, not grizzly. I prefer grizzly in my fly box. We're going to do brown because it shows up a lot better in the photography part of our presentation. But just remember, this is a concept fly. You change the color, materials, and sizes to fit whatever you want. However, we will do one thing. I'm going to go into the recipe and talk about the hook, sizes 8 to 20. I like it in sizes 16 and smaller. The thread is gray or brown or whatever you want it to be. It's going to be brown in this case because I'm doing it for photography reasons, but my absolute favorite fly is gray with the grizzly hackle. The tail is hair. It could be any one of those that you see mentioned. The same thing with the wing. The rib is optional if you want it or not. The dubbing or yarn can be either or for the body. This is one of the things that I wanted to talk about, the grizzly and or brown hackle that I'm using tonight. I'm tying a size 12 using size 10 hackle. However, to get it positioned the way I really like it on the water, a size larger is even better. Now, back in the day, when Frank developed this fly, all that was available was India hackle. This was back in the 70s and early 80s. And this was one way you could get a fly to set on the water just perfectly with the tail and the hackle tips by putting a size 8 hackle on a size 12 hook. And it was just another way of making do with what you had as far as the material that you had at the time. But anyway, let's get over here. And I am going to set a hook in the vise after I take this road map out. And I'll reach over here to the materials and get my brown thread. And I'm going to start back about, a quarter back from the hook eye, give or take. And I'm just going to wrap to the end of the hook shank and back about halfway. I said halfway, so that'll be in kind of the middle area of what I call the body area. All right, we'll just put it right about to there and stop. Now I'm going to flatten the thread out just a little bit. And you might wonder why I had to pick it up with my finger like that, why I just didn't spin it. Well, I have this device below my camera, and it's a ruler. It serves the ruler function, but it also sets just up above the edge of the of the table so that this shot isn't blinded by the lights coming in from the direction that I'm pointing here with my scissors, which is coming from below. So that's the reason for all of that. Anyhow, I'm going to go over to the materials area now and get some static guard out, and I'm going to spray down the area with a static guard. Notice that I already have a static guard pad from the clothes dryer that I put on there. It just kind of helps keep my hands under control as far as the static is concerned. And I'll just spray everything down a little bit and spray my other hand and set that aside. That should be pretty good now. And I'll get a bundle of this out and I'll take it back over to the vise. And I want you to notice that it's kind of a helter-skelter mess right at that point. And there's some of it that I don't want. Now, this fly, I'm going to go into a deep dive on the water walker and how you tie it, but I'm also going into a deep dive on tying hair wings. And one of the things that I need to do is to get rid of this junk right here, and this will pull out real easy. But if I just try to strip this out, what happens is my fingers stripping along those hair fibers. You scientific types can explain it probably better than I can, but what it does is it lines up the electrons so the positives are pointing in the same direction and the negatives are pointing in the same direction, and that calls magnetism. But if I get rid of the material by flipping up and down, I'm reversing direction, and what that does is allows doesn't allow those electrons to get all lined up, and you don't build up static electricity. Well, I do this really fast, and to do that right here in front of the camera, I'm going to end up with fuzz all over my lens. So I'm just going to slip off here to the side over the waste bin and take care of that. And got that. And back we go. And that cleaned it out pretty good. I've still got a couple here that I want to get rid of. But it won't make near the mess that it would have otherwise. And I'm going to reach over here and get my hair stacker. Slip that hair in the stacker and even the tips in that machine contraption. There we go. Got that. I got a bad hair here. Just doesn't want to fall in line. A couple of short ones that I didn't get rid of in the first place. And that's looking pretty good. And the amount of hair that I want in a tail is a bundle. After it's been stacked and cleaned, it's given a half of a twist, a bundle that the twist over point is about the same diameter as the outside of the hook eye. That's the formula that Gretchen and I have used for years and years. And we want it to be about the length of the hook shank. And I'll just set that in place, drop it down on my side of the hook, and take just a couple of gentle wraps around there. And now the hair is situated on my side of the hook, and all I have to do to put it on top is to pull down and tighten and start wrapping, and it just rolls that up on top of the hook. And now I'm adjusting the tension of my thread as I get towards the back of the hook, so it's a little bit softer wraps at the back of the hook so that I don't flare the hair in my tail. Now, if you want the hair flared in your tail, in fact, let me go back there and I'll show you what I'm talking about. Let's get back here. Okay. And it starts to flare up, and that isn't what I want. So let me see if I can recover from that. There we go. Kind of messed that hair up, but we'll just have to live with it, I guess. And I'm going to trim out the waist. Now I'm just going to wrap my thread forward now to the starting place, which is about at the 1/4 point.
If you took a wrap around under that tail, would that straighten out some of that flare?
Let's find out, sweetheart. Let's give that a try right now. Let me, got a couple of bad ones there. Let me take it the other way and see what happens.
It helped a little bit.
Helps a bit, thanks. Good tip, Gretchen. You must have tied some flies before.
Well, I never flared a tail that I didn't want flared.
That on purpose anyway, huh? Okay, back at the materials area here, I'm going to get some more hair, and I need a bundle of hair twice as big as the tail. And that's a guesstimation. You're going to have to look at it, and if you're going to make a guess wrong, make it less than more. You don't want it to be 3 times as much. You want it to be 1 1/2, 1 3/4, double, but not anymore. And that's going to look like, once I get it all cleaned out, to probably be there. So I'm going to slip out over the waste bin and get rid of all that and see how much more I'll have to get rid of. Alrighty, that's looking pretty good. Now, just on a guesstimation, that's more than double. And after doing this for a couple times, you'll get to where you can kind of get a feel for it. And now I'll just put this in the hair stacker. And give it a tap. And we'll pull it out with the tips pointed forward. And that's looking fairly good. Still got a little bit too much in there. It doesn't feel like it's there. That's better. All right. Now I always have a heck of a time making my wings too short. So I'm going to tie them on a little longer than they need to be. Leave that there. And I have a gauge. It's a really expensive one. I got a bunch of them here for sale if you want one. And it's a hook, the same size that I'm tying, mounted in a clip. And I'll just keep pulling on that until I get it so it's equal to the length of the shank. And there it is. And I'm going to roll that bundle up on top just by how I apply pressure, allowing thread torque to position the material. Now I'm going to lay the scissors in and make a very severe steep cut. Now what you want to do now is to wrap back over this and gather those trimmed ends. And I see a lot of people end up with their wraps like this. See how there's kind of some spaces, and sometimes you're going to get little things sticking up, and you may not want that. Here's a trick. This trigger finger right here, I just lay that in there, and what I'm doing is I'm pulling it back and forth. You'll hardly even see it, but it's going back and forth. I'm exaggerating right now, and I'm guiding that thread into place. Now that's come with a lot of practice, but the way you get practice is by doing. And so up to this point, I'm going to pause and take any questions. No questions. Oh, okay, well then I guess we'll go back to work. All right, now one of the things I want to make sure of is that I don't have what I have here right now. I need a real tight, you got the tight shut on that, Gretch?
Oh, sorry, I was doing something else.
Okay, no, that's all right. Right here is a hair that's crossed over the hook from the other side, and I want to make sure that there's no hairs crossing over. That doesn't make any difference if it's 1 or 2, but the truth of the matter is if you're not watching it, the next thing you know it's 5 or 6 or whatever, and you've got a mess. All right, so I've got the thread hanging at the back of the wing post or the wing bundle. And most people then think they can stand the bundle up by wrapping a thread dam in front of it. And that's one way of doing it. However, I guarantee it, even if it looks like it's up like that, when you tie that fly, when you open your fly box up in a week, they'll all be tilted forward like that. I'm going to show you a trick on making that wing stand up perfect every time. You don't stand it up all at once. You stand up about a third of it, quarter of it maybe, and put a loop in there. Now you see how that one I just bound in place is standing up nice and straight? It's going to stay that way too. Let's grab another and let's put another loop in there. Notice how I'm pulling back at an angle. That really drives it in there. And now those two bundles are tight against each other and they're going to stand up nice and straight, aren't they? Yep, they're going to stay that way. All right, now I'll take another turn. That's the third bundle. You can see a big difference between those that have it and don't have it. And now we're going to just wrap that thread dam in place. Do one more. And now I'll wrap that thread dam in place to stand up the last part. All right. Now I'm going to divide this into two wings. I got a couple that I need to get rid of here, a couple of bad hairs here that I should have found when I was cleaning out with this before stacking, and I didn't. Let's see if you can see what I'm doing. Okay, I've got so you can see just about where I can get this divided in the center. That's looking pretty good. And I'm just going to crisscross over there so that I've kind of divided the two. Now I'm going to go to work on that offside wing first. I'm going to wrap around it with some gathering wraps. And what I'm doing is these gathering wraps are actually concrete. I'm pouring concrete. I'm on the construction site, pouring concrete. And now it's time, whenever you pour wet concrete, you want to make sure you've got some rebar. So I come straight from the top down to the body, and the straight up and down strand of thread is rebar. Now I'm going to make another pour of concrete. And I'm going the other way this time. We're pouring concrete in Australia. And now I'm going to go around the hook again one more time. And again, that's a straight up and down strand. That's rebar. And I'll wrap around her one more time. And that thing is so sturdy right now, you could just about pull a truck with it. Seriously, it really firms that up. Now, I'm going to do the same thing on the near side. And I'm going to twist this so you can see better what I'm doing. Let's see if that works right about there. Well, if you can't see better, I sure can. So I'm the one doing the tying. And I'll wrap. And again, I'm pouring the concrete by wrapping up that post. I get to the top of the post and I go straight to the body. That's the rebar. And I don't care what material you're trying to strengthen. I have one where I just do hackle fibers. And those hackle fibers will support a parachute tackle just as good as anything when strengthened using the concrete rebar system. Okay. Now that gives me two good parachutes.
And I think might be important to say you need definitely to have the separation between the two.
Yeah.
On this fly, it's very
most
critical.
of the time on my when I'm just wrapping a standard hackle, my wings will be up like that. So you can see that. I'm pulling these down. I need some space to work. I am going to put them up straighter soon, but for now, they're going to be down to the sides. And I'll get my fly out of the trash bin where I accidentally dropped it out of the vise. Nothing ever happens on live TV, does it? No, not at all. And okay, now let me get this over here. Pull this off to the sides. And let's get some dubbing. I'll slip over here to the materials area.
I'm sorry.
And let's see, my dubbing is just some of our Touchatron dubbing. And this is an extra package that I have that's doesn't even have a label on it. It's just some leftover that we had. and I'm pulling that out. I'll just set a bundle of that over there at the vise, and I'll grab my dubbing wax and slip over here. And we're going to use the dubbing wax, and I'm going to hold it in my hand up like this, and then just put the wax on the thread. And then I'll just slip that cap back on. And I am going to touch the bundle of dubbing to the thread. And you see how that's just grabs that dubbing. And you know that bundle, if you put a good even layer of wax on your thread, you'll have a good layer of dubbing on your thread, because it will only grab and hold as much as it can grab and hold. And that's it. No more. And now I'm going to twist this in a clockwise direction when looking down from above the hook. Not that it makes any difference. You can twist it in whatever direction you want, as long as it's one direction only. And now I'm just going to wrap back to the back of the hook and start bringing my body forward. And I'm going to have just a little bit more dubbing. One turn in front, couple turns in back, another one in front, and now I'll just leave that right here at the front. Now we've got this, so you can see what we've got here. Okay, now it's time for the hackle. And I've got my hackle already sorted over here. I'll get it out of waste bin, and I've placed it in a clip, and I placed it so that the two dull sides are facing each other. So I want you to notice that I've got a shiny side here. And if I flip it all over, I got a shiny side there as well. So the two dull sides are facing each other. And that's not terribly important, but it's helpful. And I'll bind my hackle in place here. All right. Now that means that I've got two hackles in the middle, in between these wings, dull side to dull side, meaning when I pull them apart, one's going to go around the far side wing, and the other one's going around the near side wing, and the shiny side will be facing up like I would normally do on a parachute. I'm going to take the near side one, pull it down, and stick it in my material keeper just down there like that. And now I'm going to get ready to wrap my offside hackle. And now remember, my thread is at the front of the hook here. Now I'm going to wrap around the bottom of the hook, but slightly up a bit, taking it subsequent turns up until I reach the top of the post. Now I'm going to come down through that just wrapped hackle, working these together. Now this is the change that I've made since Frank taught me the fly. He would pull it forward and tie it off at the hook eye. I had an awful time keeping the hook eye clean. And I found that if I tie it off at, see, I better show you something here first. It's come up like that. Now I pull down like this so that when I wrap around that post, it anchors that hackle in place with that first turn. It's not going to go anywhere now. And why would I want that to be anchored there instead of maybe?
turn that towards us.
What, turn what?
Yeah,
toward?
there.
Like this?
Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
Only not quite so much. There you go.
Okay. But what I'm doing is anchoring that, and I could anchor it anywhere in the circle around the post, but I want to do it up here on top where it's going to be hidden in all the stuff that's left over from other hackles. And I'll just break that out. And if there's some fibers sticking out there, I don't really care, because guess what? You won't ever see them. Now, I am going to go around the near side wing, and I want my thread hanging at the back. That's because the way it's going to turn out, my wing is going to be, or my hackle is going to be wrapped around this wing in the opposite direction of the offside one. Pull that down, come around the wing. Make sure that I don't capture any of those hackles. It's tied off. And now I'm going to come forward and finish my fly with a half hitch and a whip finish. Half hitch, followed by another, followed by a whip finish using the same tool. And it's by using the half hitch tool to do your whip finish, you don't disturb any of those hackles that are sticking out helter-skelter over the hook eye. So we'll just cut that off. And trim that away. And now you notice that my wings are still kind of far apart. I'm going to press them together. And what you end up with is that kind of a hackle positioning
Wild.
on the water.
Wow.
It accomplishes one other thing. I want you to notice the halo messed up, no type of pattern or anything to the crisscrossing of the hackle on top. That creates just an incredible halo-looking buzzer effect to the fly on the water. Okay, you get good footprint and tail print, and a very good buzzing effect. And you can't tell what direction it's going. Where a regularly wrapped tackle, you can. Suggestions. I'm always looking for a suggestion.
I got a suggestion.
Yeah, what's that?
Mail it to me.
It'll be in tomorrow's mail along with another one. Just with the roadmap fly. You've got it coming your way, man. Now, I'll bet there's somebody else out there wish that they ask too. Well, if somebody else will ask, I've got a total of 4 of them here. Jeff gets 2. Who else gets the other 2?
This is Amy. I think you could probably tie another set of wings just behind that and then put your hackle in between and you have a dragonfly.
Oh, boy, that makes my eyes even hurt to think about it. If you need to paint it, you know what it is to just wrap it around those 2, stick it up like that, trying to do it on 4 of them. Holy Christ, Amy. Talk about, I think I just shoot myself and give it up. I know Italian salmon flies, and I hate that just about as much as anything. So
You can send me a fly.
Jim, you got one coming your way, and Amy's got one coming her way, and Jeff, you got 2.
And I have one too.
Jeff, you got one, and who was the one that just spoke up?
I
Sherry.
did.
Jim, Amy, who else?
Jerry.
Sherry. Okay, I better write these down.
I was just going to suggest that. I was going to say, you will never remember
Never
that.
remember. Okay, we got Jim, Sherry, Amy, and Jeff. Send fly. Sorry, Jeff, I just stole one of your flags and gave it, but Sherry is such a good-looking young woman. I mean, goodness gracious, you know.
Young? How cool is that?
Yeah, Sherry, I don't have any idea. Doug, whatever you do, don't take me serious. Anyway,
What about
any
having,
other
love you,
questions
man.
or suggestions there?
Boy, it's gonna
Ow.
take me 6 months to learn to tie that.
Well,
I hear you ignoring
maybe
me.
we'll, I'm sorry, maybe we'll, on the 3rd of October when we start back, because by the way, this is the last of the Fly Tying Fridays with some other stuff through the season, but it'll be kind of impromptu, but unscheduled stuff. But as it is now, though, this is the last of the winter 24, spring 25 season, and we'll start again on the 3rd of October with the fall season again. So we'll see what happens there. Maybe we'll just start all over. If we get enough reports on this fly and how well it serves people, we just might do it again. You never know.
Rachel wants to know if there was another water walker that was a foam fly.
Yes, there is. There's a current water walker that's been on the fly tying scene for, I don't know, the last few years. This water walker comes from the 70s, early 80s.
And Aaron wants to know why you tie the hackle in opposite directions.
Because I was showed to do it that way, but think about it, the way I have the hackle wrap, I got a choice of doing one or two things, of going between the wings from one direction or the other direction. That's it. But I think it's a good idea to have both feathers come through the wings from the same direction, not one under and one over. And so that's why one of them gets tied reverse, because they both start with the first wrap between the wings, not under the wing. And I don't know if that makes any difference or not, but that's what I've done. As I say, the only thing I changed from the way Frank tied it is Frank tied all of his parachutes off at the hook eye, and I tie all of mine off at the wing.
If you do it the other way, you will find out why you do it the way you just.
Yeah, I know, Jim. I know, Jim. I was trying to just save a lot of frustration for everybody out there, and after a while, people just don't even believe what we say, that we've learned all this stuff the hard way. But seriously, Gretchen and I have learned it the hard way. Sometimes having to sit and listen to one or the other of us express, no uncertain terms. Frustration, yes.
Yeah,
Anyway.
it really overloads one side of the fly when you don't do it correctly.
That's very true. Yeah.
So do you have the recipe somewhere where we can take a picture of it?
Yeah, I do. I thought I put the recipe up, but I guess I didn't.
Yeah, you did.
Okay, well, there it is. Take a picture.
Okay, hang on.
But remember, it is a concept fly, so size and color can change all over the place.
Karev wants to talk about, have you tied it in a variety of sizes?
I have. I've tied it down to 18s.
Oh,
and I will be honest with you. I have another way of hackling it when I'm doing an 18. It looks identical, but I put a little drop of crazy glue in there, and then I do a wrap, take a long saddle hackle and do a wrap around the near or far side ring, whichever. And I crisscross over to the other one, take a couple wraps on this side. And anyway, I end up with 4 wraps around each wing off of one feather without tying. I don't have to tie 2 feathers in. I just use the same feather to do 4 wraps around each wing post.
That's a good idea.
Yeah. And I tie it off again at the wing with crazy glue. I don't even do a knot. I just put some crazy glue on the thread and wrap it a couple of wraps and cut it off and cut the feather off.
I was just tying
It
some
helps to use a
18s and
whiting
20s
hackle
today.
too.
I got too many people speaking. So Jim and Jeff was speaking. Jim, go ahead.
I just said it helps if on those real small sizes to use some whiting hackle.
The whiting hackle, yeah.
You just about have
Whiting
to.
saddle hackle.
Whiting saddle hackles are very nice. Jeff, you were saying?
No, it was John. I was just admiring
John.
if I was tying size 18s and 20s today, and if you can do that on a size 18, I'm a fan.
I can tell you that no more of a problem than as long as I use just one feather. Using two feathers, you start to really struggle with the bulk of two stems in there, where you'd only have to deal with one stem being tied in at the front.
Is there a reason you don't do that on the larger sizes?
I just haven't found any good long hackle that
That will do both of them?
One of the things that I want to show you, even the whiting hackle, as good as it is, when you take a feather this long, it will be a size 14 at the butt end over here. It'll be a size 14 up here on the tip end. But let me show you something. Let's just take a look here on the vise. This is my hackle gauge. I want you to notice that, let's just take a look at the 12, for example. Right here is the smallest 12. Right here is the biggest 12. All of this area from here to here, the fibers that are those lengths are 12, but they're bigger and they're littler. Well, boy, if you have a 12 all the way through a feather, but it gets bigger at one end and smaller towards the other end, and you're going from side to side, you can get a lopsided fly really, really quick. So, but in the smaller stuff, for some reason, that isn't near the problem. And you also don't use near the amount of feather to go around the wings.
Let's see. Wonder Wings may have to take a back seat to this presentation.
Well, I will admit one thing, folks. I have struggled a little bit tying this with Wonder Wings. And I decided not to embarrass myself this last presentation of the season by trying to do it in front of the camera. I'll do a few for me, and I get a few that even turn out looking pretty good. But notice in that last sentence, the word few is a really key word.
You have one?
No,
You didn't know?
not even going to show it to him.
You're not real proud?
I'm not even that proud.
Okay. Rachel wants to see the fly again.
Okay, there's the fly. Whoops, I got a hair out of place in that tail. And I wanted to show you one other thing, just for the heck of it. Let me put this down, grab this. I want you to see how this thing sets on the water. Now, this is my fake water. And it's one of these things that I use to show flies. This is the second time this doggone fly has been in the waste bin. I dropped it in the waste bin earlier while it was under construction. Anyway, this is the way this sets on the water. Boy, it's just up there. Whoop, get over here, you. And that's the way it goes. Now you have a challenge facing all of you for the summer. And there's one other thing that I wanted to share with you. And in 1990, I went to my first show in Europe. I was invited to the Dutch Fly Fair. And while I was there, I met a number of people that proved to be very important in our lives. But for the sake of this story, the one that we're going to talk about was Lars Åke Olsson from Sweden. And he ran a fish camp in the southern border of Swedish Lapland. He says, Al, I just love the flies that you tie. I was demonstrating hair wing humpies and all this kind of stuff. He said, I want you to come to Sweden and teach my boys how to do this. I said, well, who's your boys? Oh, he says, well, I've got this fishing club in Swedish Lapland, on one of the rivers in Swedish Lapland, and it's owned, or he says, I own it, but the membership is all very rich businessmen from Stockholm. I said, okay, well, good. So we worked out the numbers, and the next year, in 1991, in the summer, I flew to Sweden. I flew to Sweden, got on a plane, flew to northern Sweden, and Lars met me at the most remote airport that I've ever been in. And then we drove 70 miles to the fish camp. Well, first off, Lars told me when I arrived in Stockholm, he says, you better stop at the duty free in the airport and buy a bottle of booze. He says, because there's no place to buy them up here. Oh, he said, okay, I'll do that. And I thought it was kind of expensive because I'd already converted all my money and I had this pink and blue and all different kind of colored stuff called Kroner. And anyway, it seemed like it was an awful expensive bottle of booze, but I stuck it in my suitcase and I got to calculating when I was on the plane, just had some time to think about it. And it had cost me about $70. I said, wow, expensive stuff here. Anyway, so we got to fish camp. There was a party going on and they were waiting for me to arrive, but the party had been going on for a while. And I said, oh man, I'm beat. I've been 2 days without sleep because of all the international stuff, and I don't sleep good before a flight anyhow. And anyway, I said, well, I'll go to bed as soon as it gets dark. I forgot, this is Swedish Lapland. It'll never get dark in the summertime up there. Anyhow, I ended up just passing out in the corner from exhaustion. But anyway, I pulled out my bottle of booze. And being a good guy, I took the cap off and I handed it to the guy next to me. He said, "Oh, don't think," or whatever language he was speaking, and he took a drink and he handed it off to the next guy. It went around that complete room. There was about 15 guys there. Came back to me, it was empty. I said, "Oh," and they all laughed because it was just a big joke on the American, and the rest of it was a really fun night. Had a good time with them all. Even spoke a little bit of English with some of them. Got into the fly tying class and did that. And then the night of the first fly tying class, they had a dinner for us, and all the wives flew up from Stockholm to be at this dinner. There was 15 couples and Lars and his wife and myself and anyway. Dinner was served, and my plate was set down in front of me by the chef. Now, I understand this is a chef flown in to take care of all this stuff. These people probably made more money in 5 minutes than I made in a year, but anyhow, it was just thoroughly amazing. Anyhow, so my plate is set down in front of me. The place went quiet. I looked around at Lars and said, "What's the matter, man?" "Oh, nothing, just eat your meal. Everything's fine." And so I knew about the way people in Europe at that time, or today even, they eat different than we do. They hold the fork in their left hand and the knife in their right hand, and an American, you lay down the knife, you stick the fork over in the other hand, and you eat with it, right? Well, if you're European, you hold the fork with the left, cut with the right, and then just keep the fork in the same hand, turn it over, and eat. So I practiced that in Idaho before I went over there. I said, well, I'll try to be like the Romans in Rome and do like the Romans do. I'll eat like they do. So anyway, so it comes down to my meal is set in front of me. I put the fork into the meat. I cut it. I went like this with the knife in the original right hand. And a big cheer went up in the room and money was being passed all over the place. And I said, "What the hell's going on?" Lars says, "You just won one guy over there in the corner one hell of a lot of money." I says, "How did I do that?" He says, "Everybody was betting that you'd eat like an American." Oh, proved to be that these guys were they'd bet over 2 ants going across the road. I mean, that's just the kind of fellows they were. It was probably obvious why they were rich people in a socialized country, because they sure had a lot of get up and go in them and always in competition. So now we get down to the fishing vest. And that night at the dinner, they had some speeches and thanked me for being there and all that stuff. And they presented me with a fishing vest and a net. The net was made by one of the guys himself. I've kept it. I've never used it. And it's absolutely beautiful. And it was completed by Thomas Nielsen. And he didn't pronounce it that way. It's more like Thomas Nielsen or something like that. But anyhow, yeah, we'll just set that aside. But this vest is identical to any 1990 vest at that time, with one exception. It's manufactured out of reindeer hide from Swedish Lapland. And at the time in 1991, it's $300. I mean, it was, anyway, so they presented this to me. And I'm going to slip it on here because our last tip has to do with a vest. Because at the time that we were there, I didn't know this trick, and I had fished with a lot of people all throughout the years and never had seen anyone use the vest the proper way or the European way. And now here's how the whole deal started. Lars says you better transfer your flies and all that stuff out of the vest that you brought from Montana or from Idaho and put it into the leather vest because you're going to be fishing tomorrow with us. Oh, I said, oh, wonderful, great. So we went down to the river the next day and I hadn't brought any fly rods. They just loaned me a fly rod. I said, well, this is great. And so I get all rigged up and put a fly on, and I look around, and they're all standing there. They don't have the waders on, no vests, no nothing. They said, Lars told me, he said, you're the one fishing today. They're going to watch you. You're from Idaho, Henry's Fork, and all the stuff that's famous about Idaho. They want you to fish. They're going to learn from you. So I did something they'd never seen before. I waded out into the river, to the middle of the river. It was enough to where I was only about knee deep in the middle of the river, and I was fishing tight to the bank. They always would fish from the bank out. I said, oh, wow, that was interesting. And I hooked 2 fish. And I turned the fish loose using the technique that I demonstrated last week, where you took the cup hook and slide it down. Well, I didn't use a cup hook. There's another way of doing the same thing. You hold the leader up here, fish is down here. You take your fly line, throw it around there, slide it down, and do that routine, and it releases the fish the same way. So it's just a fly line release instead of a cup hook release. And I did that. Well, not too much said. They were just watching and watching, and finally I got to thinking, well, maybe a fly would be better. So what do? So I do what any good American does. You stick it up underneath your armpit. You get your flies out, you dig through. You get a fly out, you put another one on. As soon as I stuck it up under my armpit, there was cheering up on the banks. Money was going back and forth. I said, oh, Christ, I already know something's going on here. But anyway, I went about and did my thing, went back to fishing. And I asked later, now that there was a 3-way bet going on. And I said, Lars, what was this bet that was going on? He said, they were betting that you would use the vest like it should be, that you would put it up under your armpit, or you'd do like that. It was a 3-way bet, and the under the armpit guys won. And I just hooked this in my pants. Now, folks, it's loose. It's okay. It's okay. I didn't blow too bad. Chuckle away, guys. Anyway, the reason that this fly rod is not all the way and I wouldn't have got stuck is, this is too funny, quiet girl. It's because there's not enough room in here to do it. But I'm going to show you the proper way to use a vest. I didn't know it at the time. I came back from that trip, and all the trips that I guided after that, part of my noontime entertainment for the client was discussing funny things that happened around the world and the proper way to use a fishing vest. And now, rather than take a chance of cutting myself again, let's take that off. Would you cut that off, Gretchen? Thank you. Cut that fly off. Hold that. I want to show them what fly was on my rod, but I'm going to just crank this all up now and get that rod tippet out of the way before I end up breaking something here. Okay. Now, understand, in real usage, I would have the tip on this rod and I'd be outside. But here's what you do. Have you ever noticed this loop down here? Your rod goes in there. Have you ever noticed this little strap up here? You got them on all of the fishing vests. And that's what you're supposed to do. Is to snap it in there. Except I didn't get it snapped. And one of the things that I found about this vest is this stiff leather. There it is. It's
Hitting the light up
I
there.
know I'm hitting the light. Everything is kind of going against me. There we go. Anyway, that's the way they do it in Europe, and then they go through their box. Also, the other thing that I noticed, everybody, the next day after I did my fishing, they all went fishing, and I got a chance to observe them in the water and got to fish with them. And that was really cool. All of them had two rods, one across their chest like this, and one that they could fish in the regular way. And one had a wet fly streamer or something on it, and the other one had a dry. They would just switch rods back and forth is the way they did it. So whatever all that's worth, you now know if you've seen this trick before, I'm willing to bet you it came from Sweden with me in 1991, because I showed 1,001 people the trick, and not very many knew it before that, including me. And I've been wearing a vest for 20 years or so. Anyhow, questions, answers, whatever.
Oh, you want to show this fly?
Yeah, I will here. And that's the fly beat up, chewed on by the fish and everything that was on my fly rod. That is a polyhumpy. So when we tell you that we fish those flies in our Easy Trout Flies book, guarantee you that one has a very good chance of being on the end of my fly line. Why? Because I find the one that we tied tonight fishes maybe just a tiny bit better in some environments, but Jesus, it's not worth the frustration you got to go through to get there. I'd rather do one of those. Okay, folks, this is the time during the program when we have all of you show us some of your tips and tricks and ideas and things that you want to talk about.
Let's
It's
see.
called Sharing on BTs.
See if they can entertain me as much as you did.
Okay. How often do you get the guy stick himself into the you-know-what with a fish hook? Never mind. Anyway, you got the picture.
It started again.
Yep, just like I thought. It's a lot better than mine.
Well, I
Very
don't know
good.
about that, but I even have all your directions and things too.
Ah,
Little
Oh,
hints.
wonderful.
Yeah. So there you go.
Well on the green screen, but it's something from a company called Ninja, and it's designed to hold different size hooks inside these magnetic slots and has a little eye cleaner on it. And so for me, since I have a lot of trouble threading hooks with the slots, it works a lot better than many of the other ones because the hook sits inside of these little slots that are cut into it. Made by a company called Ninja.
All
I
right,
worked with it
thank
today
you.
and it seemed to work.
Great.
nice.
Thank you, Bill. What?
Ooh.
Oh, it's out of focus. That's good. All right, I don't know. Maybe that's not. Oh,
Whoa!
oh
there
my
we go.
goodness.
It's
What
called a fob, F-O-B. And
Okay.
Garfly.
what it is when you look at the back here,
Your fingers are in the way.
that's foam
Oh,
tied
okay.
on about the halfway. And if you use an intermediate sink line and put a pheasant tail or a Beatty's nymph or something off the back of that thing about a foot back, this keeps it from going clear to the bottom. It acts like a float, but not up on top. And I was fishing with a friend last Monday, and he caught a 22-incher on this fly. And then it was surprising. They were hitting half the time they would hit the pheasant tail that he was using behind it, and the other times it hit this fob. I don't know if you could really call it a fly or a lure.
Or a strike indicator that goes under it. It's an underwater strike indicator.
Yeah. But
Yeah, I guarantee I caught a lot of fish on strike.
Bobber.
I caught a 21-incher off of it.
Well, that's it for this week, folks, and for this season. See you next week. No, we won't. Next season, October 3rd, 2025. Take care.